All right, we're live. Not live, but we're in the studio tonight. It's a Sunday and Sunday evening, and I just wanted to do a quick follow up on the content that I've been making. By the way, hit the like button if you want to buy me a coffee. There's a link, or just subscribe. I'll be happy with that. That's fine. I think one of the big things the first thing you should always do when you're working, and this is just some general stuff to follow in terms of guidelines, is in your DAW, make sure that whatever's in your mix window is being matched in your main window. And different DAWs do different things. I work mostly in Logic, but I was also working earlier this week in Digital Performer, and I posted that film. I posted a movie of me doing some clarinet tracking and using Polar and that. And unfortunately, the screen capture software I'm using doesn't seem to work as well. Camtasia doesn't seem to work as well with Digital Performer as it does with Logic in terms of me being able to narrate without having it go through the whole signal chain. So I'm still figuring out how to do that with that other DAW, the original DAW that I worked on for years before I switched over to Logic. But after having had a really incredibly weird bout of food poisoning last week, which lasted all the way up through this week, I'm finally in the clear with that. And I just want to talk, I know that's a non sequitur, food poisoning in music production. How many videos reference both those things in the same video? Probably not many. I want to talk about the main window, and I want to talk about why it's really important when you start working to put some metering in your window. Bad mixes, I think, really start with really bad metering. Metering is just a really great way to understand, for example, how loud a signal is. And I'm not talking about how loud you're hearing it, because you can alter that by turning up the volume or turning down the volume. I'm actually talking about loudness as it relates to signal strength and amplitude as sort of demonstrated by a meter. And every sampled instrument has a different output level. They're not all the same. And that's based on many, many factors. But for now, in Logic, most of the things that you deal with, Logic instruments, let's see, I think are fairly quiet. Well, actually, that's kind of loud. And I can just tell that by looking at the meters. So not all output levels are created the same way. And it's important to just turn everything down. That should be the first thing that you do when you begin working. Not turning things up, but actually turning things down. And if your metering is up, it doesn't matter what speakers you're using or headphones. You'll have a very clinical but a very academic sense of what the output levels are. And I'll talk more about RMS versus peak levels in another video. But it's a minor thing, but it's a big thing when it comes down to producing content, especially for clients and for film and TV work, where output levels are a big deal, because if the output levels aren't right, the film isn't deliverable. It'll get sent back to the post-production house for additional mixing. So in the spirit of that, let's talk about pianos. Now, Keyscape's pretty popular. I use Keyscape a lot. I've been using it this week. And one of the things about Keyscape that I really like are the effectuated pianos. So the ones that with a lot of extra character to them. They just sound great. And the kind of realism that you can coax out of something like this, you can get some really great pedal noise in there. You can change velocity, sensitivity. Let's get a pedal going. I don't know if you can hear that. That's the pedal in my studio, but Oops, wrong notes. It's okay. And then there's some also internal mixing that you can do. You can change the character of it. So there's always this kind of pre-mixing that you can do, and they always come with a reverb. You can turn it off if you want. It's a nice kind of reverb that comes with that. Also comes with a compressor. So if you really want to increase the presence of it. Also comes with some tape saturation as well, which can really alter the sound. And I like that. So I'm not a piano principal, and what's great about working in MIDI is there are many, many really well-known composers that are not piano principals. But you have to have good piano samples. So Keyscape's definitely an option. But these aren't the Keyscape samples I really like. The Keyscape samples I like are to be found here. And if we go down, for example, to Toy Piano, these are great. Just kind of interesting. Really interesting, different. I love these. And these have so much character and kind of creepy, and it's very sound design, distant. There's a few other ones that I like. The Wind Piano, and this is great if you're working with let's kind of work on that tonality. There we go. I mean, that's just incredible. And you can see on the meters, you have a lot of real nice low end in there. So this is something, kind of a harmonium quality to it. And these are just great. I will drop this into projects where I'm looking for some additional low end, or if I'm working on something like that's, I worked on a movie that I worked on last year that was shot in India. And I was using a lot of these lower tones here as sort of beds, and I would blend these beds with other things, because again, just using it solely on its own isn't as authentic if unless you build things out. So a way to like play with this, for example, is to use this with some other goodies, maybe Spitfire. If it's working, let's use it. Where is it here? Essay recordings, the hangback landfill totems with Omnisphere are actually really kind of cool. So let's play that. being mindful of metering, so taking a look at your meters as you're playing. And maybe taking the volume down or putting an EQ on that to get the omnispheres in, more control, and just to be fast, we'll do it with linear phase EQ. And another great place to meter things, we can put a shelf on there if we want to take some of that low end off. But that's a lot of expression, especially if we add some Valhalla reverb to this, which is just great, especially on the Hainback. And it's just fun to sort of to do that, and to not really worry too much about, what we're on that low end. So much can come out of just spending a little bit of time messing around. Let's bring another dimension into it here. Instant film score, as I like to say. There's the cue with complex orchestration that you work on and work on and work on and work on, and nobody cares about it. And then you write something that is seemingly simple, and people just love it. So, I mean, what do I know about music? But again, that's why we're doing this. Spitfire audio. Let's go and use Cimbalom, because that's really interesting. So we have sketch writing, and we're going to just do a really simple drone. Very moody. Stop that. And then we'll do a little bit of looping. Why not? And then here, Cimbalom really. And there's so much character to this. And how can we change that? We can use some Valhalla on that. Such a great sound. Again, keeping in mind how all this stuff looks on the meter while we're working. And I use different meters. I always use the basic meters in Logic, but I also use Ulean as a meter if I'm getting ready for a mix. But, when I'm sketching, I'll occasionally look just to see what levels are like. so we have that. And then, of course, plug-in sequence is really important. So I always do a meter before. I put in some temporary mastering stuff. And in the case of this, I always my go-to for instrumental music is the waves mastering stuff. So that now we have metering in and we have metering out. And in between those two things, we have our mastering software, and then we can kind of brighten it up a little bit. And what's really interesting about the before and after, you can see how the harmonic content changes when you add the mastering plugin, and it really affects the overall sound, especially in the mid to higher harmonics. So this is all just important stuff to know. Again, there's a thump in there, so I got to figure out what that is. But this is a sketch, Sunday night sketch. 3 things: Cimbalom, Dronescape, and Hindback, with some reverb and some metering. Very important. So again, please like the video. If you don't like the video, it's fine. If you're feeling ambivalent about the video, that's fine too. If you don't care about the video, well, I hope you do. But anyway, all that aside, just please like and subscribe. Have a great night and a great week.